Well, I'm Jim Wellman. I teach at the University of Washington in the Comparative Religion program, which is within the Jackson School of International Studies. Nobody understands why they have a religious studies program within the Jackson School of International Studies, and that's because the Washington State was so worried about theology being taught, they stuck it in international studies just to protect us from religion. So just as Washington State taxpayers, you should be assured that your students are not being exposed to theology. Anyway, but I've been teaching there for about 15 years, and I'm also a Presbyterian minister. And I attend the Rolling Bay Presbyterian Church on Bainbridge Island. That's where I live. And for the last several years, I've been involved in the youth group. I'm leader of the youth group, in part because my two teenage daughters are a part of it, and I love my daughters, and there was no one else to do it. And frankly, I'm pretty good at it, so, we're having a blast. So what I do, I'll give you a sense of what I do. How about that? This is my sort of the number of books that I've been going through and writing and editing. And as you can see, the first book is on belief and bloodshed. One of the really interesting things, obviously, that came up in 9/11 was that religion and bloodshed and violence were a part of each other. And Ray nicely commented on that in the sense that when religion and state get together, they tend to cause conflict and they tend to cause some violence. So we explored that. In 2008, I wrote a book on evangelicals versus liberals, and that was a book on churches in this region of the world that had never been done before. So if you're interested in Pacific Northwest religion and churches, frankly, that's a good book to buy. It's not for sale out there, but it's a good book. We've also done a book on religion and human security, and this year I had published a book on Rob Bell and a New American Christianity. Now, this is interesting because I was actually doing a national study on megachurches. And this national study on megachurches is a group of 12 churches all over the United States. And we had this huge study, both quantitative and qualitative research on megachurches. And there's a great deal of interest, as you can imagine, in megachurches. And I got interested in it because sociologically, and that's kind of my discipline, sociology, sociologically, it's really clear that megachurches dominate the American religious marketplace. Whatever you might think of that, whether negative or positive, that's what's happening now in American religion. We like to say, small churches are really picking up steam. Well, not if you look at the statistics, they aren't. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and I'll give you some of the trends, and then I'll talk about the Rob Bell book. In the midst of doing that megachurch research, a publisher literally called me and said, "Hey, Jim, would you like to write a book on Rob Bell?" And frankly, I didn't know much about him, but I had heard some good things about him, and some of my friends liked his Pneuma videos. Who's seen a Pneuma video? Yeah. If you haven't seen the Pneuma videos, you should. You can go online for free and watch them, or you can buy the 24 set of Pneuma videos that Rob Bell produced. They're excellent teaching videos on kind of the basics of Christian belief and Christian practice. In any event, in 2011, summer of 2011, I got this call about Rob Bell. I said, okay, let's do it. And Rob Bell is a public personality now, and so it wasn't easy to reach out to him. I had to go through a third party. I signed the contract for the book. Went through a third party, didn't know whether I would be able to get direct interviews with him or not. Then, one day in September of 2011, I got a call from Rob Bell on my little iPhone. And, it was kind of exciting. And I, answered the phone and says, this is Rob Bell. And I said, oh boy. It's kind of jitters, Mr. Celebrity, big guy. Anyway, so, frankly, he was very friendly, sort of acted like I didn't know him. And, but we got to know each other and did about 20 hours of interviews with him, both in person and over the phone. Also went out to Mars Hill Bible Church, which is in Grandville, Michigan, and did some research out there, talked to his lay leaders, talked to people in the pews, or in the seats there, which is what, a megachurch has. And did a lot of research, listened to 100 sermons of his, and really then put them into writing. I literally put it into writing so I could do some more direct research. And interesting, just a kind of a side note, interesting that I found that his sermons was his best reading. And it's very interesting, in the midst of signing that contract to write the book on Rob Bell, he decided to leave his church, which was very interesting. There was a little concern on the publisher's side that, this will kind of hurt the sale of the book. And they certainly were interested in selling the book. But we went ahead with the book anyway. But it was a very interesting time. He's an interesting guy, as you'll see. Now, what I want to do this morning is give you kind of some trends in the American church, and then put Rob Bell in that context. Does that sound good to you? You with me? Okay, so, this is from Mark Jay's book, American Religious Contemporary Trends. If you want a book on American religious trends, he's the best sociologist in America right now on that topic. It's not a very sexy book or a sexy title, but it gives you the bare facts. And so it's good stuff. Let me just give you, it's about 10 slides. I'll go through them really quickly. If you want me to slow down, if you have questions, just, interrupt me. I don't mind. I'm used to students. Go ahead and do that.
Question.
Yes?
Will we be able to access these online anywhere,
I think this talk is being recorded, and I'll put these, I'll give the PowerPoints to whoever's in charge.
Okay, appreciate that. Note taking, that's helpful to know.
Would you guys like that?
Yes.
Okay. Does somebody mind giving me a cup of water? I'm already out of my water, and I'm dry mouth as heck. Okay, that'd be great. Okay, so there is some consistency in belief. People, for the most part, believe that God exists. About a third of us are born again, and that really goes to today. About a third of all Americans are evangelicals or call themselves evangelicals. About 3/4 of us pray several times a week. Read the Bible weekly. About a third of us watch religious television. About a third of us. About a quarter of us this is self-expressed. That is, they believe they are very religious. About 86% of us believe in heaven. 75% or so believe in hell. How many do you think believe they're going to hell? I love this. I would love to interview the people who believe they're going to hell. It's about 0.001%. So it's fascinating. There's a lot of people who believe in hell, but very few believe they're going to hell. Probably a few of us believe some of our friends are going to hell, but we're not certain. We can't be going there. Okay, so big changes. There are big changes, and this is important for you as a minister. For me as a youth minister in my neighborhood, man, it is secular city on Bay Bridge Island. And people more or less despise Christianity. And they do it publicly, and they do it in the schools, and they don't feel bad about it. And so it's interesting. So, when I minister to my youth, I have to sort of convince them that, Christianity's okay. It's for rational folks. It makes sense. It's not just, does that make sense to you? Do you all hear that in your views? I certainly hear that in mine. So, in any event, there are changes. Today, nearly 20% of us in America have no religion. And for those under 30, it goes up to about a third or even higher. And about a third or more say they have no desire for a religion. You remember the days when we talked about seekers? Man, our younger generation are less and less seeking religion. That's interesting. So when you have people who have no interest in religion, maybe negative towards a religion, how do you do that? Yeah, it's very, I see it both in my undergraduate students who are mostly disenchanted or despise religion, even though they come and want to study it with me. Or, probably about 10 to 20% are relatively evangelical, about 5 or 6 in every class are really fervent. And so it makes for an interesting mix. About half of them are Catholics and never go to church. So it's a really, very interesting group, man. Anyway, very few are Protestants. We don't dominate anymore, my friends. The main line is not only losing its status, but Protestants in general are now almost a minority. And in terms of other religious groups, we like to talk about how diverse we are religiously. Really, in fact, we're not. We're a dominantly Christian nation, and now a nation that is the two groups are dominantly Christian, and about a third of us who are no religion. Leave us the heck alone. So that's interesting. And increase in people marrying across religious lines is a big deal. Okay, this is so interesting. Much less certainty among Americans now. In 1924, 91% believed that Christianity was the only true religion. Today, only 40%. Woo! That's a huge drop. That's interesting. There's another religion. Is there another religion that is true, a true way to God? 3/4 of us will say yes now. So there's a sense of pluralism in your pews. Do you know who believes that Christianity is the only true religion the most? Tell me. This is interesting. Well, you get an A, or you get 3 points if you answer this. Evangelicals? Nope, not evangelicals, not Catholics. Clergy. Clergy, it doesn't matter if you're liberal, moderate, conservative, you believe there's only one true religion. Huh? Not this clergy. Okay. Anyway, but it's a fairly high percentage, so there's a few outliers out there. Anyway, so it's kind of fun.
Are the way these questions come up here, how they were worded on these surveys?
No, but this is good research. I don't traffic in George Barna research. This is great. This is excellent research that takes into consideration how questions affect people's responses. So I hear what you're wondering. Gradual decline in literal inerrant view of Scripture. This is correlated with higher education. Yes. Did somebody bring me water? Oh, that's good. Anyway, I say yes to higher education. I'm really unsure of whether we're doing a very good job with students or not around meaning, purpose, religion. That's another subject, but I'm not big rah-rah for higher education. I think there's some real questions on what we're doing with college. But that's another, you can ask me back another day. A third of those under 30 have no religious affiliation or are not seeking any religion. That to me, that was a Pew study that just came out. And that is really intriguing, and I think there's something going on. The kind of the rise of the religious right in the 1980s and 90s really damaged the national reputation of religion generally, and Christianity in particular. I think we're getting a backlash against the merging of religion and politics. Ray was really right about that. And that's really being impacting our young people.
Does that mean they're not asking big questions of life?
Yeah, the question was, they're not asking big questions of life. It's just, I am one of the few UW professors that actually sits down with my students. Once a week, in my classes, I say, hey, you can come out and ask me any question you want. I get to ask you any question I want. You hold nothing against me. I will hold nothing against you. And we sit down and talk. And what you get in that raw interaction is some cynicism about the adult world, some feeling like higher education is getting me nowhere, and wondering what am I going to do with my life, and not in terms of meaning, but how am I going to live? So I think that the economy and our culture really confuses young people, but they're dynamic, they're smart, they're brilliant. I love them. They're just facing, I think, a culture that is really screwed up. Let's just be clear about that. And they clearly don't see religion as the answer. Well, I'll just say that. So it's not about meaning and purpose, and everybody's interested in meaning and purpose. They just don't see religion making that answer, giving that answer. Yeah.
Does this mean that 2/3 are religiously affiliated and are seeking religion?
Yeah, I think there's variations across that spectrum, all over the place. And I don't have those.
I'm surprised it's not more than that.
Yeah, I think it could be. I think it's growing dramatically. And this is the first generation where you get this. This is really new, folks. This is not typical. This is not typical. We are in a sea change generation. You are feeling the lack of young people in your pews, and it's real, and it's not all your fault. There's just young people just don't see religion as the answer, and it's very interesting. Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out too. Yeah.
Assuming that no religion creates a vacuum,
Yeah.
do you have any observations of what's filling that vacuum?
The question
That
was.
might be a big assumption, but
Yeah, the question is what's filling the vacuum? I don't know. I think that's really interesting. I really unsure. When I talk to them, I just don't. I think they're really unsure. I don't know. I think this is as a person who studies culture, so interesting. As a minister, just as interesting. I don't know what's happening. Yeah. Okay, American time use. We all know this. 40% of us don't go to church. Oh my gosh. Maybe 25%. I think that's high. On Bainbridge Island, that's 3%. I don't know about your neighborhoods. On Sunday morning, the roads are not filled. Okay, decline. This is really critical. Decline in people being raised religiously by religiously active parents. 1900, 70%. Today, less than 45%. I think that's gone down dramatically. If you want to ensure that your kid becomes religious, continues their affiliation, stay together as a couple and both be religious. And actively so, and communicate about your religion. Like my wife and I do. Okay, so if you want to know how to keep your kids interested in religion and God, that's how you do it. There's just no two ways about it. And as our family structures change, whether you think that's good or bad, or whatever you think of it, as it declines, religious affiliation will decline and will continue to decline dramatically. And you'll see, so you see that one. And the other thing, kids, young people are less and less interested in having families. They can't afford it, can't afford houses, the whole bit. They move back in with you. How many do you have kids who have moved back in with you? Raise your hands. Yeah. Okay. All right. Involvement. American family change, never married, doubled in 1970, from 1970, 16% to 35% today. So that's interesting. So society, I think, in a sense, you could say is fragmenting. And, in a sense, somebody asked the question, why does Mark Driscoll's church attract so many people? And for whatever reason, I've actually interviewed him. And let me just give you a little insight on Mark Driscoll. He's so smart and so creative and so talented as a communicator. Oh my gosh. Do I agree with almost anything he says? No. But he's really good, and he gives a sense of certainty, he gives real structure. I think young people want structure, and we live in a very structureless society. So I think that's just the answer. Will it last? I doubt it. I can't. I discovered some things in that interview that I can't even tell you about. That I just wonder, when is this guy going to fragment? Anyway, you can talk to me afterwards. Anyway, but he's a very talented person. Okay, another big change, movement towards big churches. These big churches are like Walmart. They're more effective, they're more efficient, they attract greater resources. They, frankly, attract bigger talent in terms of leadership. Because you got greater talent in leadership, they attract more people to these churches. They can give more services. Why do you go to Walmart? They give you everything you need in one building. Holy smokes. Why would I go anywhere else? My kids like it. So many of those people we talk to, why do you go to your church, your mega church? My kids want to come. Okay? Why do you go to your mega church? Okay, folks, listen, it's an oxytocin high. Oh my gosh. You go to one of these mega churches, it works for me even. Walked in, first thing they said to me, right at the door, friendly, young, bright, hot coffee in their hand. Want a cup of coffee? I said, hot dog, you bet I do. It's great, and I'm cold. And I don't even want to be here, but you made me welcome. And so, walk in, and I've done this a lot, so I know all the tricks in the book. And friendly, hold your hand, tell you where the student, the kid building has every level that you can imagine, with friendly young people, young adults handling it. You just go, oh man, the music's great, if you like that kind of stuff. The building's dark inside, so you can be anonymous. The speaker wears a t-shirt. He's cool. He is cool. He is cool. He relates to me. He doesn't speak in big words. The whole thing. Anyway, lots of people, that feeling of shared communion with each other, we know physiologically makes you feel good. When you go into a room that's kind of dispersed, not half full like my church is, it feels kind of yucky. Physically, physiologically, you feel not quite right. You go to a church that's packed, you feel, yes, this is the place I was meant to be. You feel it in your body. So when we looked at all the qualitative data, all that came out. Just exploded. God is like a drought. Oh my gosh. Anyway, that book will come out next year. I'll talk about that book next year. Okay, here we go. Why are we declining? You know all the reasons. Our kids don't come back. We have fewer kids. In the Jackson School of International Studies, we have 45 faculty. How many kids have we produced in the world? Half. One half of a kid per couple. Really smart people, we don't produce. We don't reproduce. That's the way it goes, folks. The conservatives don't lose their youth, and you know how this goes. There's a backlash against liberalizing the 1960s, although there's a backlash against that backlash now. And so there's a decline. There's now a decline in evangelical attendance. They're experiencing some of our problems now. Yes, they are. Okay, so schadenfreude on that. Okay, so they're losing their competitive edge. Backlash against the backlash. Even the majority of white evangelicals say that there are many religions that can lead to eternal life. So there's change. One of the things that I find among mainline Protestants, you guys, or me, I guess I include myself in that, but you tend to project onto evangelicals kind of a sense that they're all the same. They're all fundamentalists. You are a little bit bigoted. Can I say that? You're a little nasty towards your fellow believers. Hint, hint. Seriously, I've had to go through that transformation. You know, and I'll give you two things. One, evangelicals, clearly in my Evangelical versus Liberal book, evangelicals outserve you dramatically. They outserve liberal churches dramatically. You know, and we have empirical research on that. So you can't brag about that. And they got their own problems. But also, there's many subcultures in evangelicalism. There's many differences. There are pro-gay, right? Evangelicals now. There's all sorts of different evangelicals out there. They're fascinating. That's why I studied this stuff. Anyway, so don't generalize. Just as I probably shouldn't generalize about Protestant mainline. You know, there's lots of subcultures there too.
I think the Mormons fit into all of this.
Oh, geez. Well, that's great. How do the Mormons? That's another talk. I think they're just fascinating. They are true Americans. They are true Americans. Their gospel is a true prosperity gospel with no conditions. It's kind of awesome. I got to be less and less surprised that Mitt Romney was the candidate for the Republican. So that's another story. It's an interesting one. Anyway, okay. Let's go. Conclusion. I think there's towards less religion, more generic spirituality, younger generation, really disinterested. I don't know where they're going. No one does. That's interesting. Oh man, I got to study that. And I thought about doing another study on that. Increasing concentration of churchgoers in larger churches. Family demographics trends are changing so that there's less religious institutional nurture within families. That's a big problem. If you want your youth to be, again, religious, stay together, talk about your religion with your young people, pray with your kids. I pray with my 2 daughters. It works. Seriously. They're both religious, Christian. And I'm clergy. Okay. Rob Bell. Interesting dude. So he comes down, he kind of parachutes down into this weird culture that we live in. And what does he do with it? That's kind of the question I have. What's a very creative, interesting guy do with this culture? There's my Rob Bell book. Okay, I'd like you to buy my book. I'll just be unabashedly unapologetic about it. I'm selling it right here for $15. So please do buy it. It is a great book. Oh my gosh, for the first time in all the books that I've written, people have said to me, I can't put your book down. I mean, so I'm bragging, and rightfully so. Sometimes you just gotta let it go. Anyway, no, I like it. I read it last night again. I was thinking, dang, this is good. Who's this guy? Who is this guy that wrote this book? Woo! Anyway, so yeah, no, I'm happy with it. So this is the chapters, 7 chapters, or 8, 7 or 8, I forget. This is the first chapter. Subversive, celebrity, radical, heretic, holy man. Who is this guy? Right? If you don't know much about him, you should. Seriously, Numa videos are really good for adult ed, for youth education, even for children. He is a master performer. Okay? Some of us are suspicious of performing. I was. Did I want, at seminary, at Princeton Seminary, did I want to take a speech class? No! Did I think it was any useful at all? Heck no. Seriously, I despise the speech thing. Sermon giving, what a bunch of crap. Okay, do I have regrets in my life? Yes, that's one of them. I was dumb. I was young and dumb. Anyway, Bell, from the get-go, was fascinated by performance. How do you get people to listen to you? Okay, so he had 2 interests, really. The dude had 2 interests. He loved Jesus real bad. And he gave his heart to Jesus, like typical evangelical. Knees on the ground, next to the bed, give him a heart to Jesus. And he really loves Jesus, right? But then he started going to church. And this is what he said. I went to church and I felt like they unplugged the machine. And all the electricity that I feel about my faith was gone. All right? That's what he would say. That's literally what he would say. And so what he said is this: I'm going to plug it back in when I get my chance. When I am the leader of the church, I'm going to electrify my church. Okay? And he was so, I met him at Grand Rapids, went to a coffee shop. Me and Rob, hanging out. Oh, that's funny. Anyway, so he's talking. One thing that you find among celebrities, they never run out of stuff to talk about. And did he ever ask me a question? No! Anyway, so he's into himself. There's no doubt about that. Okay, so he's talk. And I said, Rob, dude, you seem more, okay, this is what I said. This is pretty good. You seem more in love with performance than you are with the gospel. Ooh, yes. Okay? And for the first and only time, I saw Rob Bell hesitate and stop talking. It was funny. And then he said, And this is what he said: that's a compelling insight. That's funny. That's a compelling insight. Okay, then he went on to defend himself and basically incinerate all the pastors he knows. He never, I'll give him this, he never by name denigrated anyone. And all the time I was with him, he really never mentions anyone else. That's interesting. Never mentions anyone's name. Never identifies with anyone or any movement. No one. Okay? And that's interesting. I don't know, that was kind of one of the mysteries about him, is that he's sort of sui generis, he's self-generated. That's really interesting. And he does that on purpose. He doesn't read any blogs about himself. Do y'all, don't you do that? Well, maybe, I don't know. You read I've actually stopped reading student evaluations. Because then you get high off the good ones, then you're depressed off the bad ones. So I just stopped. Anyway, he never started and doesn't now. So he doesn't read it. If you have negative things to say about him, he won't read it. Okay, so in any event, he said to me, you know, there's lots of people that say, I preach nothing but the Word of God. And he said, they have 10 people in their congregation. What does that do? And, I mean, okay, he really believes that if you're going to do the job, do the job. And if you're going to do the job, you better be good. And so he worked at his art. And for him, preaching is art. It's pure art. And art doesn't come easy. And so he was at it. So, you know, is he a celebrity? I don't know. Is he subversive? In interesting ways. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. Is he a radical? Sometimes. Is he a heretic? I don't think so. You know, unless, you know, we'll get into that. Is he a holy man? No. I was really interested to see how spiritual this guy was. And I spent, he moved to California. He moved to Laguna Beach. I would like to move to Laguna Beach. Wouldn't you? And so in Laguna Beach, he now does his little, clergy seminars. 50 people at the Laguna Beach Hotel. And I said, Rob, can I come? And can I come for free? And he said, of course. And so I went down. And so it was me and Rob and 50 other pastors. And it was, I didn't actually enjoy it. Although I liked being at Laguna Beach. I ran along Laguna Beach. Anyway, what was I getting at there? Is he a holy man? I don't think so. I didn't get a sense that he's holy. Whatever that means. I've been with those type of people, and I just didn't get that from them. Okay. So there is subversion in this story. And this is something that a lot of people miss. And this is really critical, is that he grew up feeling out of it. Real seriously out of it. Like he didn't fit into any group. And that's the story that he tells about his growing up. Is that he wasn't in the popular group, he wasn't in the sporting group, he wasn't in the nerdy group, he wasn't in the high achieving study group. He didn't really even like the pure Christian group. He really felt out of it, and he suffered for it. Now I know you're probably saying, oh boy, that's really tough. But that's how he felt. He also grew up in a kind of high-achieving father, became a federal judge under Reagan, very conservative family. His mom was kind of a high-achieving woman. They were just kind of super volunteers for the churches. And you get a sense that in his family, he didn't feel like there was a lot of nurture of him in his life. And so for him, Jesus is the one who is like him, who is excluded, who is an outlier, who doesn't fit in, who suffers because of it. He felt like, that's who I love, who subverts the system. I will be this subversive person in the system. So, and how does this how does this resonate in his church life? You kind of think, okay, Rob Bell, super successful guy, right? In church services, every church service I went to or listened to, he would talk about how people are suffering, how people are alienated, how people are separated from God, from each other. And he would talk about it so much, I would say to myself, who are you speaking to? And I think he treated his congregation like an AA group, literally. Now, what's fascinating about that, and I think it was really sincere. I don't think this was insincere. And what's fascinating about that, I just lost my train of thought. AA group. Oh, goodness gracious. What was fascinating about that, Jen? I don't know. Well, let me take a drink of water. What's fascinating about that is, okay, this is what I said. When I visited the church, I walked in, okay, it's 3,500 people coming at the first service, 3,500 coming at the second service, okay? I walk in, I look normal, right? This was the most successful, happy, healthy, kind of virile group I've ever been around. Literally. Okay? Tall, Norwegians, it's Grand Rapids, very white. So, why is he talking about how everybody's suffering? You know what I'm saying? That's interesting. That's a conundrum that I still kind of wonder about. But so for him, my thought was this, and this is from my megachurch research, is when you get into people's lives, there's a lot of suffering going on. And you don't necessarily see it on the surface. Okay? And I think he was really in tune with that. And I think there's a lot of suffering going on in our culture that he was really in tune with. And this goes to what a charismatic figure does. A charismatic figure, we have a lot of suspicion of charismatic figures. And I think, rightfully so to some extent. Although they're really important people because, they do good things. But they are in tune with the culture. They have gotten into the inside of the culture and really feel it. And then they have solved some of those problems in the culture. Okay, you with me? And then, and so you feel in them self-efficacy. Oh my gosh, they solved it. Guess what? So can I. Then they bring back to the culture solution. Interesting? Oh, for me, that's very powerful insight. Thank you. I think that's right. That's really right. And I think that's what he was doing. He was really in tune with people. And he could go into places kind of betwixt and between, like an artist does. Artists go into places that no one else dares to go. And then they step into it, they walk around in there, they describe it, they describe what's really going on, and you just go, whoa, that's spooky. Okay, but it's really interesting. And then they show you a way out. And I think that's what Bell was doing. He was kind of going into these dark, lonely, distressed places, using the Bible to show how the Bible did it, and then walking with people to a place where there's some hope. And in the Sermon on the Mount, he did this, oh my gosh. I actually missed the research. This is weird. I miss listening to his sermons. Okay, I really do. This series on the Sermon on the Mount, where he had gone through, he had gone through a kind of a breakdown, literally. And he came back to the Sermon on the Mount and he said, in my suffering is the kingdom of God. Right in the midst of it. And then he took people into that. Into his own, others, the Bible. How does Jesus do this thing? Why does he say, blessed are the poor? Not after they get rich, but blessed as poor. You, blessed as having had an abortion. You, blessed as having been divorced. You, blessed for being poor. As a poor person. Anyways, it's very powerful. Oh my gosh. Anyway, yeah, so I got something out of this as I was going through it. Anyway, kind of early, I used this edgeman metaphor. He was an edgeman, kind of on the margins of society. I think he still sees himself that way. Kind of sees himself on the margins of culture and society. I think he found himself as a performer in music. He wanted to be let's be honest, I think he probably wanted to be a rock star. But he got meningitis. He wasn't that great as a singer, and that dream kind of went down the tube. And he woke up. What am I going to do? I don't know what to do. How do I perform? I like Jesus. Okay, let's preach. That's it. That's what happened. That's his call. Felt a call to go to seminary, let's see. And the dude became, oh my gosh. How do you like this? Okay, he starts a church in 1999. 1,000 people come to the church on the first Sunday. They expect 500. Okay, he starts the church, and a year and a half later, this is literally true, not clergy talk true, 10,000 people are coming. Okay? That's pretty good, folks. That's pretty good. And he couldn't believe it. Nobody could believe it. Everybody's going, no signs on the church. They buy a mall for $1. It's just a broken down mall. It's not even that great. I've been there. It's still not even that great. And anyway, it gets people going. And it's a stage in the middle. It's an old, the Anchor Mall store, stage in the middle, screens on 4 sides, just chairs all around. It's a fantastic band, and it's him performing a sermon. That's it. That's it. That is it. And that's all he wanted. 10,000 people, and guess what? He more or less kind of has a mini breakthrough. Because this is what he says. I've gotten everything I wanted, and I don't like it. It's not what I was looking for. And in the book called Elvis, Velvet Elvis, he says, it was time to kill the super pastor. And so, in the 10 years of his ministry, I kind of see that as one highlight. And I see that as the first step out of the church. Because he felt that the church was killing him, basically. And the kind of expectations on the super pastor, way too much, was a mistake. I can't keep this up. And he wasn't just joking, fake, faux humility. It was real. I'm going to show you a picture at the end of the slideshow at his last sermon. He looks like a wreck, literally, physically. I think the dude was burned out. I think the pastor nearly killed him. Anyway, that's what he did. And but in the midst of this, the dude was still performing and very creatively doing it. The first Pneuma came out, it was shot on 9/11. Isn't that interesting? On 9/11, they shot that in the first Pneuma. Remember, a charismatic figure comes at a time of transition and doubt and anguish, feels that struggle, then comes out with an answer. I think that's exactly this story. That's what this story is about. And that's what he did. One of the questions I grapple with in this chapter on charisma is, is it hypocrisy? A lot of people just assume he's a hypocrite. I mean, there's plenty, some of you are just going, oh, that dude is a hypocrite. I know it. You know it, everybody knows it. A lot of people say that to me. What do you write about hypocrites for? And then I say to myself, oh, shut up. Can you do this? Can you do what he did? Seriously. The amount of okay, what I love about him, and so this is kind of the answer to the hypocrite question. He never built a building. He just painted that wall, put chairs in it, and did his thing. He never built a cathedral to rob them. That's the main reason I really respect him. So no, there's no debt on the building. No debt. He left it without debt. A quarter of everything they took in through the joy boxes, is what they call them, went out. During his ministry, through money that came in and also through grants, they did about $10 million worth of direct aid for AIDS education in Africa. They created their own water system that came out of engineers from the congregation. They did a dramatic amount of direct aid and also service in Grand Rapids, in the ghettos of Grand Rapids. In 2007, Rob Bell and his 3 kids and wife moved into a Grand Rapids ghetto. They got rid of all their cars, they got rid of most of their possessions, and they moved on in. Okay, so is that a hypocrite? I don't know. The number of people that will say Rob Bell and his ministry directly transformed my life is just endless. It's dramatic. Is that a hypocrite? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think of them that way. In any event, so that's kind of the answer to that question. Anyway, the rise of the artist. There's too much here, so I'm not gonna, you have to read the book. It really is a good story. And he's a good artist. Very interesting guy. Oh my gosh. The story of his art. I think he's an artist, and his canvas was Mars Hill. I'm gonna draw, perform, and give you the story of the gospel that will set you free to go help others and transform the world. And I'm going to do it by painting the picture with music, sound, and any means necessary. I will inspire and challenge you. Okay, that's it. And the Ezekiel sermon. Oh my God! Oh my God! A killer. Okay, I'm not going to redo it for you. Just read the book. Or look it up. So, Ezekiel's first vision. I cannot believe what he did with that. So, okay. All right. Radical. Is he radical? That's an interesting question. He went through kind of his radical stage in 2007, moved into the ghetto, worked on a book by Jesus Wants to Save Christians with Don Golden, sort of the liberationist Rob Bell. In that book, I think it really is his most controversial book. He called America an empire like Egypt or Rome, and it's controversial. It really is. Basically, kind of came out of the closet against the Iraq War, etc., etc. Very interesting, very biblical, very interesting. It's worth reading, I think. Really thinks of faith as a descent into the life of Jesus, who is the marginal one, who is the one for others, who is the one who lives with the poor. And that's what he did with himself. And in the 2 years living in the slum, he struggled. All right? 2008, I think he has kind of his second breakdown. He feels like God's calling him to stop talking. Yeah. that would be a miracle. And so he does. He goes to Ireland, finds a priest, listens to him, and the priest basically says, Rob, you're not receiving what you're giving. The good news you're not receiving. You're giving, but you're not receiving. Comes back, really is transformed, moves out of the slum, and writes what? Love Wins. That's where Love Wins came from. Love Wins. And, how many have read Love Wins? How many? Yeah, so a handful, yeah. It's a good book. I don't think it's the greatest book. I think Jesus Saves Christians is really, I think his best book is his first one, Velvet Elvis. I think that's the best book. I think you get everything about Rob Bell that's going to come in Velvet Elvis. And it's really well done.
What is it you're saying?
The best book, Velvet Elvis. Velvet Elvis is I think his best book. The seeds of Love Wins is even in Velvet Elvis. Okay, everything's there. And here's kind of a fundamental point of view for him. Where you start the story is where the story should end. And the story started in the Bible with Genesis and creation. The story ends in Revelation in 20 and 21 with new creation. That should be more powerful than the story of the fall. If you want to sum up his theology, that would be it. Concentrate on creation and new creation. Quit obsessing over the fall. Quit making Jesus a scapegoat for your sin. Quit using his blood to make you feel better. I know, it's controversial. Read the book. And this is what he really believes. He says, so the fundamental act of the atonement is Christus Victus, right? Is the act of the victory over death and sin. Christ has won the victory. New creation is now present with us. You don't have to wait for eternal life to experience it. It is here and now. The kingdom of God is working within us. Stop putting your face in the fall. Turn to the new creation. Okay? And you can, it's good stuff. I like it. Yeah, I've heard this before. But that wasn't big news for me, but for some it is. It got him pushed out of the conservative evangelical nest. A lot of people say this, and Tony Jones said this. The conservative evangelicals were waiting for an excuse to kick Rob Bell out of their camp. Love Wins was like a softball to them, and they just went, boom! See you, Robbie. And so he's out. There's a few people who are conservative evangelicals who just trash my book. It's pretty funny. But I know they haven't even read it. You know what I mean? You can always tell. Anyway, so that's okay. Anyway, but it caused some distress for his church, Marcel. I think he felt it was time to leave. It was a good kind of launching point. Bestseller, got to be Time Magazine, one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential men in the history of mankind, humankind, whatever. He was really big. He met Carlton Coos, who's the producer of Lost. They became buddies. They said, okay, hey, come to Hollywood, Robbie. We'll create a TV show around this unpublished novel that you wrote. Okay, that's the story. And the Hollywood people bought the rights to that story. They didn't pilot it. And he's in Hollywood still trying to make a Rob Bell talk show. So I don't know if it's going to work. I really don't know. He took a chance, and I'm not sure if it's working. It's interesting. This fame might be done. It might be all over for Robbie. That's interesting. That's interesting, too. I don't know. Anyway, I don't think he knows what he's going to do. He's a very interesting guy. He said this: I am doing what I've told my congregation to do. Take risks. That's what he's doing. He's a real risk taker. One of the things I felt from him was that he's kind of fearless. There's some real fearlessness in him. I'm going to do it. I'm going to follow it. Yeah. Anyway, okay. Is it a new Christianity? You'll have to read the book to find out. This is what, okay. Do it. I really like this part of the book. The last page. The last chapter is pretty good. But his last sermon is really good. You want me to read it? Read the good part? All right, here we go. And this is really heartfelt. I write this to you because of how many of you have been challenged about your participation in the life of this church. Often with the accusation is this: what do you believe out over there at Marcel? As if belief, getting the words right, is the highest form of faith. Jesus came to give us life, a living, breathing, throbbing, pulsating, blow your hair back, tingle your spine, roll the windows down, and drive fast experience of God right here, right now. That's pretty good. Word taking on flesh and blood. And so you found yourself defending and explaining and trying to find the words for your experience that is fundamentally about a reality that is beyond and more than words. So when you find yourselves tied up in knots, having long discussions about who believes what, a bit like dogs doing the sniff circle when they meet on the sidewalks. That's pretty good. Do this. Take out a cup and some bread and put it in the middle of the table and say a prayer and examine yourselves, and then make sure everybody's rent is paid and there's food in the fridge and clothes on their backs. And then invite everybody to say yes to the resurrected Christ with whatever yes they can muster in the moment. And when they take the bread and you dip it in the cup, in the ancient future hope that trusts that there is a new creation bursting forth right here, right now, and then together taste the new life and liberation and forgiveness. And as you look those people in the eyes gathered around that table from all walks of life, and you see the new humanity, sinners saved by grace, beggars who have found bread, showing the others beggars where they found it, remind yourselves of this. This is what you do. Remember, the movement is word to flesh. Beware of those who will take the flesh and want to turn it back into words. So, in the end, this is my last sentence. In the end, the only true test of faith begins and ends in incarnation. Love made real through actions. All else is straw. That's it. I think, okay, this is what I think he thinks. He thinks that the Word of God is God's great artistic work in the universe. And the only way that artistic work becomes real is when it's made real in incarnation, in action, in charity, in love, and justice in the world. That's it, folks. All else is just missing the point, as Rob would say. That's it. All right. That's it for me. Any questions, comments, thoughts? Oh, yeah. Sorry. Oh, yeah. Here's me and Robbie. Oh, can you see that? He doesn't look good. And I don't mean that as being mean. I mean, after he finished these sermons, I think he had given everything. And he just looked destroyed. You know what I mean? It was very hard work for him. So I think he's kind of an introvert. So, in any event, okay, and then buy my book, would you? And this is good. Oh, this is a good endorsement. It just came out. Yes. Yeah.
Well, how old a guy is he?
He's 42 now.
42 now. And I grew up in the area where he's...
Yes.
What church did he grow up in that his parents were active in? Do you know?
Oh, good question. What church was he active in as a young kid? I think it was in East Lansing. I think it was a Baptist church.
Baptist, okay.
Yeah. I think his parents were very conservative Christians. And conservative politically. Yeah. So they weren't real happy with Jesus wants to save the Christians. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
How influential is this journey that he's made theologically on the rest of the church, on other folks?
How influential is this journey that he's been on in the rest of the church? Okay, here we go. I think the evangelical camp is in a tizzy. Not about him. They're in a tizzy about politics. They're in a tizzy about the faith. They're in a tizzy about their youth. They're in a tizzy about the whole gay thing. They're in a tizzy like, what? This didn't work. The Christian right didn't work. So what do we do now? And I think Rob Bell is showing them one way to make it work, but I think some are following it and others are not. I don't know what's going to happen. I think the evangelical world is in a world of hurt in terms of what their real aim is. It's going to be hard to be anti-gay marriage. That's going to be really interesting. In a world where it's legal now. That's going to really be interesting. Anyway. Okay, Jeff.
Jim, what did you think about the New Yorker profile? Because the way that kind of rounds out, with him kind of taking a bunch of pastors surfing, and I was kind of your read on it. How it played out. Did that gel with you? What the Rob Bell that you've got done your research?
Yeah, it was a good question about the New Yorker article. I thought it was okay. It was just, it was okay. Kind of confirmed most of the stuff I thought. I don't know where I don't know what he's doing. I think he's kind of revivifying, renewing himself. The whole Laguna thing, it doesn't get me going. Surfing every day, that's what he's doing now.
Yeah.
And he says, I said to him, where do you spend time on Sunday morning? I'm on the beach reading the New York Times with my daughter. Okay, another thing I respect about him, he really takes care of his family. Totally, he really loves his family, his 3 kids. And I think he took the break for that too. You have to remember, in his 11 years or 10 years, whatever, his tenure at the church, never had an office in the church. Never really was involved in administration. Hated administration. Hated the whole political scene of the church. Just dropped out more and more. And he was so good he could do it. Kind of weird though. Where's your head pastor? We don't know. He's kind of he's basically a contractor. So I don't know what's going to happen. I think it's a good question, Jeff. I don't know. It was a weird scene. The 2-day pastor thing didn't do anything for me. I was disappointed in it. But I think he's kind of struggling with what to do. Yeah.
Well, so far I've read your book. I read Christianity Today occasionally, and the one thing I remember reading about Rob Bell was when he declared there is no hell. Rob Bell, no hell. But so far, listening to you, I just hear about another big ego.
Yeah.
So why should I have any interest in Rob Bell, and how is he, if it isn't really about let's see what it says in the program. It said, maps to develop a more ambiguous, more open evangelicalism. Is that actually happening, or is
Maybe.
it just
I don't know.
Game claim that it's not?
Evangelicalism is disperse. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that word. He's all over the place. He's fragmented. And I'm not sure anyone's going to lead it to the promised land. The mainline church is doing the same thing. I think we're all doing it. I'm not sure where Christianity is going. I think we're all kind of writing a new script as we go along. All I can say is this. I'll say this to you. Man, in the time I spent with him, he really re-enlivened my faith. Made me fall in love with the Bible again. Gave me kind of new inspiration for what's possible in the church. I came away totally in awe of what he did. So, if you don't think that's anything, that's cool. Literally, I don't, I'm gonna be like Rob Bell on this one, who cares? But seriously, I don't, and I think that's what Rob Bell would say, it's okay. He wasn't looking to be Jesus. He really wanted to step out of being Jesus. So it's really good though. It's, when you get inside that stuff he's doing, listen to a sermon, then come tell me that you think this is silly. Yeah.